I love a good cunty moment.
Welcome to another author profile from Cheap Smut. My name is Katie Mizell.
And my name is Carl Mizell.
And today we are joined by the fantastic and lovely Shannon Elliot. Welcome.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Carl, you want to do your intro?
Nah, I'm good. No, I'm just kidding. Shannon is delightful. We've been talking to her briefly off pod. You are from Houston, Texas, correct? Or from the Houston area, yeah. You are a writer of romance. You love a good book. You're fur baby. Oh, what's your fur baby's name?
Elliot. He is a Shih Tzu Bichon Frise, and he is the most spoiled boy ever.
Oh my God!
Oh.
This is Himbo Jones. He's sitting in between
love
us
Himbo.
right now, sleeping.
Yeah.
He's a good boy.
He's a star of the show here. She has a background in theater. She loves storytelling and the creative process, which is a thing that theater can really sap out of you sometimes. And I really love this part. You believe that diverse and inclusive stories shouldn't be the exception. They should be the rule. Here.
Absolutely. Yay. Oh, I'm so excited. To do this.
All right, well, get the ball rolling. So you're down in Houston. Are you born and raised in Houston or in the area?
Yeah, so born and raised in Houston, moved away for college and then spent a couple years in D.C., but ultimately moved back home. So now we're doing the full-time author thing from the great state of Texas.
So very far away.
Yeah.
So very far away from us up here in the big mitten that is Michigan.
Yeah. But I will be making, well, technically my second trip. I had a layover in Dallas a while ago, but I'm actually visiting Texas for the first time in a couple of weeks. So very excited. It's a work thing, but I am sneaking in a trip to a Rangers game while I'm down there. So yeah,
that'll be fun.
Oh, yeah.
I went to college up in the DFW area, and we went to sporting events, mostly theater events, all the time. So if you get a chance to stop by the Dallas Theater Center, highly recommend. Very beautiful.
I would love to try that. Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to rent a rental car.
Ah.
We have to Uber everywhere because there's so many of us going down there. But that's not what we're here for. So did your background in theater, first of all, is that what you studied in college?
Yes, it is. I got my degree in theater design. I, at one point in my life, thought I was going to be a Tony Award-winning costume designer.
Hell yes.
That did not happen. And so, it's always kind of been where I came from. It's my roots. It's how I learned how to tell stories and how to build characters and things like that. So it translates really nicely when you start building your own worlds.
Oh, I can imagine. Now, I'm always curious about this because we've talked to a couple other authors who have backgrounds in theater. Was it jarring for you to go from such a collaborative form with theater to such an isolated art form as an author?
Yes and no. Yes, because I can see how it would be very isolating. No, because I'm stubborn and refuse to do anything on my own. And so I actually have a really great kind of community of writer friends and beta readers and all sorts of things. So I have never written something that I have not first said out loud to my writing partner or messaged her about. The frequency with which I send her the message, unhinged idea, a lot. It happens a lot. And that's basically how I plot and get ideas out to be able to write them. So much more community and collaborative oriented than you would think.
Oh my God, that's so wonderful. I love that.
How quickly does your phone start to autocomplete unhinged? Is it when you type a U? Is it that often?
Well, it depends. If it's in caps lock, then yes.
Oh,
if it's not, then it typically goes towards something that's a little bit more bookish related.
Fun story. If I type the word unhinged into my phone, it automatically capitalizes it because it thinks I'm talking about Unhinged, the book by Vera Valentine.
See, the bookish version of the capital U. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It knows.
It does. It knows. It's Katie's probably talking about weird smut again. It's fine.
Either that or my like mental health, because that too is also unhinged.
With a capital U for sure.
Yes.
I was perusing your website. Now you have got a book coming out. Now today is March 20th, so your new book comes out in 2 days. But by the time
Yes.
this releases, it will have been out for a week. But it looks like, unless I'm missing something, will this be your 4th book?
Yes. So it's the 4th book that I published on my own, and then there was one anthology that I published with a bunch of other queer authors back in June of last year. But 4th time's the charm. We'll see.
Okay.
Freaking fingers crossed. I had my fingers crossed for Heal too. I don't.
Heal was like an anomaly, I want to say, partially because I just kind of went, here you go, never did any marketing for it, never really pushed it. Like, I think it's a really great story. It's a femdom romance that, like, I think a lot of people can connect with. But what I'm hoping is that people will read Bound and then want to go read Heal, because I have what we call the Shannon verse. All of my books are interconnected, and so everyone makes appearances at different points in time.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it when authors do that, because then I can get like my red string out and like oh, I remember that person. It goes all the way to
Yep.
the top every time. I love it.
So the characters from Heal make an appearance in Bound.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Do they happen to make that appearance at the club that you have imagined to be the center of your world?
Kind of.
Yeah.
They do appear at the club, but they're not like specifically mentioned at the club. They they make their appearance in another portion of the story that takes place at a ranch. So, yes, they're members of the club. No, they do not appear in the club in this book.
Okay, cool. I want to hear so much about the club. I really do. I want to hear so much. She invented a sex club for her world. That's the you say 8 books that you're planning on?
7.
7 books that you're planning in this series. Bound is number 1.
Okay.
And there is a BDSM or a swingers club.
Both.
Yeah, that exists in her world that she is moving all of her characters through. I love sex clubs in books. Because I would never go to one in real life because I am terrified. I love reading about them.
Yes.
I was going to say, you get anxious in a Whole Foods. I don't
I
know
do.
how a sex club would.
No, I
work
could never.
for you.
I couldn't, but I can read about them.
Oh, is it getting warm in here? No, that's the hot bar, honey. Just step away. It's fine. You'll be fine.
Oh, yeah, it's really interesting because like I do write from my own lived experience, and so like in many cases the club is a reflection of a lot of the community that I have found myself in the kind of like schmink world, kink world. Am I allowed to say like the
yes.
actual words here?
All the
Okay,
words
cool.
here,
Yeah.
yes.
I'm so used to censoring myself because of social media that it's like
I know, but
No.
we're just like a regular old podcast. You can say cunt here. It's fine.
perfect. I
Yeah.
love a good cunty moment.
Yes.
But yeah, so it's like it's very much influenced by the community that I've found and built around the idea that like I feel like in so many books when people incorporate like kink clubs, BDSM clubs, sex clubs, it's like this taboo kind of like place where all of these kinky things go down. But the reality is that like there are whole communities that are built around these interests. And so in the book Bound, and like the whole point of this series is to kind of explore what it means to find community in alternative spaces and how you find love through those connections within community. That's probably a little too deep and philosophical for our
no.
smutty readers.
No,
That
God.
was wonderful. I have goosebumps and I'm very excited.
No, because again, not to constantly bring it back to theater, but I feel like theater has that element as well. There are a lot of misfits and cast-offs and that sort of thing, like people that don't feel like they have their place, that
Yeah.
ultimately find that place where it's acceptable to be, like to suddenly break into song or think that everything is a reference to Sondheim. Like,
Yep.
it's
Or want to be tied up.
or want to be tied up. Like it's and that's the hard. I think so many people struggle with is like they can't see beyond their hand in front of their face. Like it doesn't matter what you think about this stuff. These people are all consenting adults in a safe environment where they're doing this in a safe way, like
Yeah.
in finding the community that they couldn't find anywhere else.
Yeah. And I think it's really important, like, when you're creating worlds and characters, that, like, you establish relationships with other people within the world, because, like, no one exists in a vacuum in real life. And very much like when we're telling stories of people falling in love, like, if you don't have a group chat with the girls, what are you doing? Do you not screenshot every conversation that you have with your crush and send it to them? Like, these are like the human parts of telling stories of people making connections with each other. And like part of the reason that I write polyamorous romance and why choose romance is because I firmly believe that, like, no one person should fulfill your every need, and you have to have connections with various people in order to meet all your needs. And so when it comes to romantic and sexual relationships, I think that that's possible as well, where it's like you can have romantic and sexual feelings and attraction towards people that aren't just like one monogamous partner. It can be. That's absolutely possible, but I don't know, it's just like it's more of an amoeba than I think a lot of people kind of think it is.
Oh, definitely, absolutely. So let's kind of get into it. Take what was the first time where you thought that this was an avenue you wanted to pursue? When was the first time? Can you remember a moment where there was like, I want to do this. I want to put this. I have this idea. It's been banging around in my skull. I want to commit it to paper. I want to give this a try.
So for this series specifically, when I first started getting involved in the community in my area, I started to have like experiences and things like that. And I had this moment. I was on a live on TikTok with a bunch of friends, and I was just like talking about life and bullshitting around with them. And at one point, someone goes, "That would make a really good book." And I went, "Oh, it would." And the concept for the series started off as this idea of a series of books, each one focusing on a unicorn or a bisexual woman in the lifestyle who plays with couples typically, and kind of the story of how those unicorns would find love either with multiple partners or a single partner, and what that looks like within a swingers slash kinky world. And so it's evolved a lot since then. It's not all unicorns who are like FMCs anymore, but it's very much kind of stuck to that premise of like, not just like what does it look like to be part of a kinky community, but what does it look like to find like love and connection within a kinky community. So yeah.
Great answer.
I love it so much. I just love it. I'm just gonna sit over here and cheese for the whole interview.
I don't know if you've ever actually listened to one of the author profiles, but this is basically the dynamic.
Yeah.
I ask the questions. Katie just gasses you up and tells you what a great answer you gave.
It's true, and I mean it every single time.
And
God.
then I cheese
I love
on her.
that.
She looks so cute, and then I forget what I'm going to ask next.
Oh.
It's a whole big thing. And,
oh, my Lord. Okay. Back to Shannon.
Yes, back to Shannon. So when it comes to, you said you're a full-time author, so this is what you do. So I see in your background there, it looks like you are more of a plotter.
I'm not.
Okay.
And that's the joke.
Oh.
I have this massive whiteboard with sticky notes that supposedly helps me keep on track. But the thing is, like, I put the sticky notes up, and then they just poof,
They
But-
disappear.
gone.
if I took a screenshot and I said enhance, they'd all say ipsum lorem. They wouldn't have anything on them.
Probably. It's actually the
Yeah.
one that's behind me right now is for a book that, like, I haven't worked on in 6 months and have no idea when I may publish it. So we're trying different things to figure out how Shannon could write a book, because I actually only became full-time back in August of last year. So we're still figuring out a lot of the royal we. I'm still figuring out a lot of the aspects of like being a full-time author and like how that works and working habits and all sorts of things. But also like my creative process has changed so much, because it used to be a for fun thing where I would come home and as a like stress relief from work, I would write at home. And now it's like I wake up in the mornings and it's like I sit down at my computer and I start to go tippy tappy. And that's just very different. And I wasn't used to it at first, but we're starting to get the rhythm of it. But the sticky notes are definitely abandoned.
So what's the biggest change that you've noticed from your process when you first started to now, now that you're full time?
Okay, other than my sleep schedule, which is far more chaotic these days,
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing that's changed is that, like, it's a lot easier for me to stay in the world and with the characters than it used to be. Because prior to me becoming full time, I would write maybe like 100 words, 500 words at night to try and get a book done over the course of like 8 months from the start of drafting to publication. But like Bound, I wrote the first draft. Well, technically, I wrote the first draft twice before I wrote the first draft that's closest to what I'm publishing. But I wrote it in about a month, and then like the final form kind of came together over the next month. And so it's just like being able to live with characters and like really bring them to life in a way where it's like they feel like they're constantly there. They haunt you. And at 3 a.m., when I can't sleep, they're like, you must go to your computer and write this smut scene or this scene where I have a mental breakdown. Most of the mental breakdown scenes, though, are because I'm also having a mental breakdown and it just feels right.
Get something out of this. Like
Harness the energy.
Yep, exactly.
Yes, exactly.
If you're going to lose your mind
Yes.
for just a moment, you might as well make something out of this.
Yes, exactly.
What is there anything about being a writer that you've found oddly, like, that you would have never guessed that you would really be into, but that you just find yourself going, God, I love this part?
Oh, gosh. That
And
is
I
an
can edit
excellent question.
Thank you. And I can edit any long pauses. So if you need to take 15, 20 seconds, take your time.
For a second, I thought you were going to say 15, 20 minutes, and I was like, boy, we don't have that kind of time.
No. And I'm not that patient. I'm going to go get a drink. You guys need anything? She's thinking.
I think the part of the creative process that like I've learned I love the most is character development. I'm not a person, like, again, I'm not a plotter. I'm very much a pantser where it's like things just come out of my mouth and then are put on the page. And I think because of my background in costume design specifically, I spent so much time analyzing other people's characters and then saying like, okay, well, what do their mannerisms look like and what do they wear and how do they dress and like what are their internal thoughts when they're like getting ready in the morning or getting ready for an event or whatever. That has very much influenced it the way that I create characters because it's like I add in a detail because it feels right. And it feels like this character is supposed to be bisexual, but that's true of all my characters. Or it feels like this character needs to struggle with a certain topic because either it's right for the story, it's right for the characters. And I think that that like slow development of a character is like really satisfying to me because it feels like a person is actually coming to life rather than writing down like and they're 5'8" and blue eyes and like all these different characteristics, you know?
Has your work as a designer bled into your writing? Like, do you tend to really emphasize the descriptions of attire, or is that
No. So in my first book, Angels in the Dark, I wrote it, I sent it off to my beta readers, and I had a beta reader come back to me and say, Shannon, you forgot to describe 2 characters. Like, they're named, but they don't have a physical description. You don't get to know, like, eye color, ethnicity, none of it. Because to me, it's like for Bound, I drew a map of the club because I was like, I need a physical representation of where things are because we're planning 7 books. But when it comes to characters, it's like, well, they're in my head. And because of my design background, I technically have the skill to be able to like make my own character art or like do my own drawings. And I do that sometimes, but like they're so real in my head physically that there's genuinely no point for me to describe them in the manuscript except for that my readers need it.
It does come in handy.
Yes. Yes.
I don't know, I've sometimes you read. I mean, your books are not like these, but sometimes you read like those like short little insta loves where they're like there's nothing, there's nobody, they don't have any character descriptions at all.
Yeah. Just hot.
They're just names and they're
Yeah.
beautiful and they have sex with each other. You know.
Well, Keel is very much like that because I don't actually give the character names until the very end of the book. They're
Oh
just
yeah.
sir, mistress, and pet the whole time. And like
Nice.
there's very few physical descriptions of them other than like a few key things that you need to know. Like the fact that she's plus size and like has beautiful curves and stretch marks and things like that. Very important information. However, what color is her hair? I don't know.
Doesn't matter. She never looked in a mirror. I don't know.
No, exactly.
It makes perfect sense to me. It does.
What do you do to ensure that when you write scenes involving kink, that you're being sensitive to somebody who might read it and is involved in the community?
So when I write kink scenes, there's obviously a lot of research that goes into it. Like for Bound, it's a bondage and like rope play book. And so you buy 20 books on shibari and like rope play and knots and things like that. Again, nod to my theater background, who taught me how to do all these knots for rigging. Turns out I would just do it in a kinkier sense in my future. So like you do a lot of research to make sure that like you're using correct terminology and that you're like trying to execute things in a way that makes sense to readers and whatnot. But I think that the biggest thing for me personally about writing kink is that it's not just an action and it's not just sexual. It is a very emotional process to be involved in a scene or a dynamic with someone. And so like there is a lot of sensuality there, but there doesn't always have to be. And so, what I try to keep in mind the most, and I think a lot of people who are in the lifestyle can relate to, is just that, like, it's play, but there's an emotional depth to kink that I don't think people outside of the lifestyle would assume. They might make the assumption that, like, oh, this is like a hobby. And yes, to a certain extent, collecting floggers and whips is a hobby. But using them on someone or like learning how to tie someone up in cuffs or in a suspension rig or something like that, you have to be passionate about it. But you're doing it because of the connection that you have with your partner, your play partner, your spouse, whoever that person is. And it's a way for people to connect with each other. And so when I write it, it's not just kink for the sake of kink, it's kink because it's part of who these characters are. It's an extension of them, not just, woo, we're having fun kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Absolutely.
Yes, and I think that there's a very important distinction that I think that needs to be made when we talk about smut specifically and kink. There's kink, like Shannon writes kink, and then there's quote unquote kink that makes it into your more regular books, and you have to be careful of understanding the difference between those two things because one of them makes it sound real easy, like a thing you can just pop in and out of because it sounds like fun, and that's how you get hurt. And
Yeah.
the way Shannon writes it is intelligently and safely, the same way as like when Gwendolyn writes kink.
Okay.
It's very important. Yes. Yeah.
Well, and like there is a line within literature where it's like, this is not an instruction manual. I may describe
Right.
in detail how you tie like rope cuffs, but it doesn't mean that you should be using my book as instructions. Go find the book that actually gives you information on like all the nerves and blood vessels in the wrist so that you learn that first, and then you learn how to tie rope cuffs with the handy dandy little like photo illustrations of it. But so like not an instruction manual, but at the same time, it's like kind of is because everyone I think is a lot kinkier than others realize. Like spanking is technically impact play, and so like
Yeah.
anytime that someone like spanks their partner in the bedroom, it's like, well, you're kinky now. But not everyone's going to call it that. Just because you call your partner good girl, good boy, or like tell them that they did such an excellent job for you, they may not think that's kinky, but that's very kinky, you know?
Oh, absolutely, and I would assume that it's relative as well. I mean, not to make it like a competition, but let's put it this way: when we started this podcast, I had no idea what smut, capital S smut, entail. Like, I have learned so much about what so many people are into, and the reason that these books exist, the reason that we read Claimed by the Cthulhu for this show is because that does it for some people. It does it, and it's so fascinating to think about how every week my spectrum of what I think I understand about smut just continues to broaden because she brings me another book that I would have never
All new nonsense every week.
I would have never considered. So I am eternally fascinated by this. But I'm also imagining somebody, you mentioned like tying knots for rigging, and I just imagine somebody doing that and going, I hope this doesn't awaken anything in me. And then
New kink unlocked every time.
Exactly.
Yep. Exactly.
It's like the little achievement bubble above your head.
Exactly. Boop. Oh, cool. What is it? Ooh, what is that? I think I'm gonna like this. This is fun.
Oh my lord.
Goodness, you are so much fun to talk to. We've been talking for almost 30 minutes. I had no idea that it's just flown by so quickly. If you don't mind telling folks, where you said you went to school in the DFW area, would you mind telling us your alma mater?
Yeah, I went to Texas Christian University.
A TCU,
Not
Horned Frog.
Christian.
Oh,
Go Frogs.
is it?
But
I thought that's what it was. I'm sorry.
Oh, I think she's saying she's not
No, no,
Christian.
no.
She just went to TCU.
Okay.
Yes, correct. They are not
Okay.
as religious as I think some people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not like going to Brigham Young.
No, I was not casting any aspersions. I just was immediately like, you were like, not Christian. I'm like, Chi? What does it stand for? But so you are a horned frog.
I am a horny frog. It is true.
That had to have gone over real well with all of the weirdos in the theater department to be horned frogs.
We made the jokes all the time. It was great.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, they practically write themselves.
They do. They do.
If you were going to turn one of your books into a play, which one would it be?
Heel.
Heel.
I think that, like, it's short, it's sweet. Well, it's not sweet. It's short and kinky. And I think that it would translate really well to the stage because it's like, you know that feeling when you walk into a theater and the lights dim and the audience lights dim, the stage lights come up, and like that first character walks on stage and you just get like chills, either because of the first line or the first note. I feel like Heel has that moment where you're not walking into the beginning of a story, you're just walking into the middle of it. There's so much history with those characters that you immediately jump into, like, okay, well, what the fuck happened here? And you kind of figure things out along the way. And that's one of the aspects that I've always loved about theater is, like, it unfolds before you. It's not a point A to point B to point Z kind of situation. It's waves and emotions and moments and, like, if you're going to get really technical about it, like pauses and beats and forwards and all those different types of things. So I think Heel would translate really well to theater because it's like, if you're going to get technical, it's like minimal settings, 3-character cast, which would do really well these days because large casts are hard to do.
Yeah.
A very straightforward plot line. Like, the theater nerd in me is like, this will be adapted one day. If we want to do film, I am so hoping that this new series would get adapted. That would be fun.
Picked up by HBO.
I was going to say that's an HBO prestige series. I'm thinking I see black box. I see very minimal set lighting. I like it.
Yeah.
And a shiny platinum leather pink pump. That just
That's one of the things that like I had a lot of fun writing Heel
mm-hmm.
was Heel is a femdom romance, but she's not a leather and latex kind of femdom. She's like a pink lace femdom, and sparkly heels femdom. And I just think that's like so fun for some reason. Maybe it's because I'm the one with the pink cat ear headphones, but like
I mean, there has to be room. There has to be room for a femdom Lolita. Like there has to.
Oh, absolutely.
You have to leave room
yes.
for it. Absolutely.
Oh no, I mean I love trope subversion. I love the idea that there's a daddy out there, but it's Ned Flanders.
Oh my God, I actually saw the most incredible drag king Ned Flanders performance on TikTok yesterday.
Please send me that video. I need it.
I will dig through my likes and find it and send it to you.
I can't believe we're
I
not
have
watching it
somewhere.
right now. But like Heidely Ho, you did a great job.
Oh,
Like kind of thing, like
Yeah.
khakis and a sweater, but that could exist.
yeah. Well, I mean, they were like soft doms, so there have
Yeah.
to be soft doms of all genders, and sometimes
Yeah.
that means sparkly heels and pink cat ears. Why not?
Well, and just because you're a sparkly dom doesn't mean that you can't also dole out a really good punishment. Like,
Absolutely. It's about aesthetics. You can still, smack somebody around or step on them, tie them up, and still be pretty.
yep.
And look
Yeah,
great doing
exactly.
it.
Yes. Very important.
Is there a trope out there that you really, really love that you just haven't got around to writing yet that you want to get in there one day?
Trope or kink?
Trope. We'll start with trope and then we'll go to kink. I feel like that's the
Okay.
the escalation. Let's start with trope.
Yeah, because kink, there's one that comes immediately to mind, so we'll save that for a minute.
Yeah.
If there's one trope that I really want to write, it's pregnancy trope. I have a very specific version of pregnancy trope that I love. It is not surprise
Ah.
pregnancy. It is not third act pregnancy. It is, I want her to be like pregnant from the beginning. I want to see the pregnancy happen, whether or not the baby's born by the end of the book, toss up. But part of the reason I love those types of pregnancy trope books is because I love when the guy or the partner is just like so madly in love with them and like takes care of them the whole time. And if you can add groveling in there where he's groveling for some reason
Oh.
while she's pregnant,
Oh my
oh
God.
my God.
I have to look up a book for Shannon. Where's my phone?
I don't here. Use my phone.
I got it.
Yeah,
it.
Well,
guys
if
keep
you
talking.
read Omegaverse, you need to go check out Jillian West because she does pregnancy trope and like single mom trope really, really well. She's one of my favorites for that.
That's awesome. I just
Yeah.
read. I'm still reading the Wolf's Mate series by
Joseph Abernathy or
Joel Abernathy. It's an Omegaverse Mpreg book. I'm having a blast.
Yes, send me the titles. I need them.
Oh, I will. Where is, you know what? I had those books in Audible. So
Perfect.
why don't you ask her a question while I figure out
yeah.
what's
I was
happening
just gonna. Again. Every time you mention Mpreg, I have to mention that I did a scene from Joe Penhall's birthday where I played a pregnant man, and that was a lot of fun.
here. It's true.
Well, let's talk about while she's looking that up. Let's just talk about that kink. So, what's the kink that you're dying to write?
Cuckolding.
Oh,
Ooh.
interesting.
I wanna
like
write it. So badly. So my ultimate favorite trope of all time is groveling, and I seem to find a way to work it into a lot of books. There's a little bit of groveling in Angels and Devil in the Dark. There's a lot of groveling in Heel, and I didn't realize it until I wrote it, but there's also groveling in Bound. And so it just
Accidental
the
groveling.
it happens. But like the groveling trope lends itself so well to cuckolding because like there's a difference between like a stag vixen relationship where like the husband may enjoy watching his wife be with other men and cuckolding because there's a humiliation aspect to cuckolding. And so the whole groveling trope with a cucking like kink. Oh man, it will happen. And it will happen sooner rather than later. I
There's
just
a
don't
light
know where it
behind your
fits in
eyes
right now.
now.
You got groveling in my cuckolding. You got cuckolding in my groveling. Two great things that go great together.
They really do. They really do.
That was as I started to evolve my thinking about smut. That was something like I've only consumed a little bit of smut of my own, but just understanding the different, like you made a very clear distinction in that there's enjoying watching your partner with somebody else, but then that is actually separate from cuckolding. And that is what I'm fascinated by. I come from a music background. I was in a lot of bands, and people who love music love their micro genres. Have you ever given any thought to ever just writing just like an actual play or writing anything other than smut? Do you have any interest in doing that at some point in your life?
Yes and no. Right now, I'm really enjoying writing romance and writing smut. And so I am a very much kind of a one track mind kind of girl where it's like, this is what we're doing and we're going to go full throttle. And like, I have so many stories that it's like, I don't really have time to do something else at the moment. But I think that, like, with my theater background, I would definitely want to write a play at some point. But I think mostly with writing novels and romance novels, I would love to see my books turned into film or TV of some
Mm-hmm.
sort. But right now, the goal really is I want to do full cast audiobooks. Like, I want
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
not just like dual, not duet, full cast. I want every character to have its own unique voice and like that 6 names on the narrator's list kind of thing. And like, yeah, narrators can voice multiple different people, but it's one of those things where it's like, A, I really want to have audiobooks for like accessibility reasons, but also it brings the stories to life in such a different way, like hearing the voices and the
Mm-hmm.
inflections and things like that. And so like I think that it's kind of like a stepping stone thing where it's like, okay, once I have my full cast audiobooks, then we'll talk about film rights and then we'll talk about writing a play and going to Broadway. And then I will hire my Tony Award winning costume designer so that I don't have to do it myself.
Yep.
But you can just give really good notes.
Exactly. I don't like where this seam is. Please change it.
You and I have both listened to the full cast recording of American Gods, I believe, by Neil Gaiman.
Yes.
I have one of Dune, and it makes you're so right. It makes such a difference. What is the name of the priestesses? The
Bene Gesserit?
the Bene Gesserit.
Yeah.
Like they have like a woman that sounds like an old crone.
Oh yeah.
Like Jim Dale is amazing, but Jim Dale can't do old crone woman. Like I love that you say that, because I can just imagine that these stories come to life so much more when you've got that many people involved in having each character with their own distinct voice. I love it.
Yeah. Well, and especially because my books are so interconnected, like you meet characters in book 1 that are going to be in book 2, 3, 4, so on. And so like getting to hear their voice a little bit in the beginning and then going to a future book and hearing their voice again but in like a larger capacity, and like it adds like depth and like layers to it, and I just can't wait.
That's exciting. I love that verses are a thing now. I mean, comic books have been doing it for like 60 years.
Oh yeah.
But
Now there's the Shannon verse.
like everybody has a verse, and I'm not complaining, because I grew up reading comics. I'm a huge Kevin Smith fan, so of course, like, all of his movies have characters that come and go and are interconnected. Was that something like was the idea of a connected universe appealing to you for other reasons, or was this just something that you're like, I want to have all of my books be connected just because it'll be fun?
So it's something that like I've always really enjoyed with other authors. There's a historical romance author, Sarah MacLean. She wrote one of my favorite historical romances of all time, Brazen and the Beast. And all of her books, or most of her books, are kind of shared world where you see kind of cameos of different characters. So I've always enjoyed it. And then when I started writing, I got to the end of Devil in the Dark and was writing the prologue and just realized like, oh, this this epilogue, the story of where Juliana and her love interests' lives kind of change and like take a new path is the perfect opportunity for a sex club. And then I wrote Heal and I was like, okay, maybe that's like a one-off thing. But when I started writing Bound, I was like, okay, but how one of the characters in Heal is a therapist. And I really needed a therapist character in Bound because there's a lot of mental health issues that like come up and some like suicide idealization and things like that. And I was like, I need a therapist. Oh, wait, I wrote a therapist. And so it's like, it just kind of happened. It wasn't on purpose, on purpose. It's just very convenient and I plan on continuing it, you know?
Yeah. Have you sort of like, for lack of a better term, cannibalized other ideas? Like, oh, I was working on this thing, but I like that character. I think they might fit over here. Well, actually, I guess no, it doesn't really work for you because you've got the universe. They all are just sort of interconnected.
They exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Answer.
Also, most of them don't exist yet because I don't know a lot of this information until I get to it. So, like with the Playground Club series, I do have all 7 books kind of outlined in the sense of like I know the character names and I know the kinks, but like book 1 through 7, you're gonna see people like established and then grow and evolve through the whole series, not just through one book. Because like here, I'll give you a little example. So at the end of Devil in the Dark, there's an epilogue where you're introduced to Celine and Gunnar. Celine and Gunnar are the main characters of book 2 in this series that I started writing like a week ago. But they also appear a lot in Bound because Celine is my main character's best friend. And so it's like you start to learn about Celine and Gunnar in Devil in the Dark in the epilogue. You really get to know her in Bound, and then you get her story in book 2, which I guess I just spoiled things for my readers because I haven't announced that yet. But
I can edit it out. It's fine.
No. Keep it in there.
Okay.
I'm terrible at keeping secrets, so there's no point. It was gonna come out at some point. Also, it just gives me more reasons to say go listen to the podcast because it's like if you want to know secrets, well, I kind of let it slip during the podcast. But then also, it's like the trio that we have in Bound, they're going to continue to appear throughout the series. So you're going to kind of see how their relationship evolves. Like they have a happily ever after, but you get to see that happily ever after and how that's interconnected and how that touches other people's lives. And I know there's going to be a point where like someone references, well, they made it work kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so it's like characters inspire each other and they impact each other. It's not a little container that you keep one story in. I can't help myself.
No, it's so good though because what happens after happily ever after is a thing that we do not address enough. This is a fantastic way of keeping track of. I always want to know what happens to them after I'm done with them. I always want to know, and
yeah,
and at least once I'll know.
That's one of my favorite film conventions is when a film ends with like, so and so went to, jail and this person. Yeah, I love when they just kind of put a nice little bow on everything. Now, has writing a universe presented any challenges you had not anticipated before?
Oh my God.
Yeah. Okay. So yes.
Oh my God.
That face says it all.
So, in real life, I have the worst sense of time ever. So when it comes to writing a universe, I had to like sit down with my writing partner Becca and go, okay, this is the timeline of Angels in the Dark. Here's the timeline of Devil in the Dark. Jump however many years to get to the epilogue of Devil in the Dark. where we're establishing the club's opening, jump time period so that we get to the beginning of Bound. Well, then I have this whole timeline that's now been established for Bound. But like I mentioned, the couple in the second book, their timeline is congruent. So I had to go through and be like, okay, well, for book 2, I can't have certain things happen until these things happen because of events in book 1. And for someone who has no sense of time, I had to get a calendar so that I can flip through the year and be like, okay, 1 week passes. It is the 29th of whatever month. And like, that's how specific I had to be in order to make this happen.
Oh boy. I know how that goes. I understand it. I'm the same when it comes to real life. I'm great with time, but when it comes to like writing things, I in the few things that I've written time wise, it's always been a struggle. Speaking of time, we are kind of closing in on the end of the interview here, so I just want to lean in because we've talked to people that are into theater, but you did theater. So let's get crazy. Shannon,
yes.
Let's get crazy.
You have been given a time machine, but it only allows you to go and watch specific performances by specific actors in specific productions.
Jeez, out.
So not just like, oh, I'm going to... So who do you go see in what role? If you have to think about it, I can tell you I would love to go...
No, I don't have to think about it.
Okay, go.
Ooh.
I got it. I want to see Neil Patrick Harris in the original production of Assassins by Stephen Sondheim.
That is a great fucking answer. God, that is a great answer. Oh, love Assassins. I am unworthy of your love.
Set me free, Charlie. Yes.
What about you?
Oh God. One actor?
Well, I mean,
or like one cast?
Who's the first person? Actor, cast, who do you go see? And
I go see the original production of Hair.
Ooh. Yeah.
Or I go weep watching Raul Esparza in fucking Company. I couldn't remember the name. I'll go sit and I will weep. I'll weep him all night.
His rendition of Being Alive
is
slays
beautiful.
me every fucking time. I need to change my answer. It needs to be that, I think.
Oh.
I was going to go back. I want to go see Bernadette in Into the Woods.
Oh.
Ooh. That's a good one.
Yeah.
But we sort of have.
No. I want to see her in Gypsy.
Yeah.
That's a good one. You know what? I want to see Imelda Staunton in Gypsy. I'm going to send you a lot of stuff.
Perfect.
I'm going to send you a video too. I might
Awesome.
need your phone number so I can send you some YouTube links.
She included it in the.
Oh, fantastic!
In the
Right.
thing.
You
So,
have it.
Cool.
Feel free.
we saw the original. We saw the original cast of Once
We did.
with Steve Kazee and
Ooh.
Krista Milioti.
Yes, we did. For our honeymoon, we went to New York. We saw like 7 shows in 5 days.
Yeah,
something stupid like that.
So many shows.
I've done that too. So for like my quote unquote study abroad in college, we went to Canada for the Shakespeare Festival there and the Shaw Festival.
Yeah.
We saw 19 shows
You went
in
to
13
Stratford?
days.
My parents used to go to Stratford.
Yeah.
Every year they would go up and see like 3 or 4 shows.
Yeah, because we can drive to. I mean, we're right across. I mean, we grew up an hour
You're
from
so
Canada.
close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Okay, well I'm coming to visit and then we're driving to Canada.
Please.
Please do.
Come visit.
No, I mean, Gwendolyn's going to come crash our
Yeah.
Thanksgiving.
Gwendolyn Harper's crashing Thanksgiving. You come visit. We'll go to Canada. It'll
Yep.
be great.
Perfect.
Come up during the Stratford Festival. We'll boogie on over there. Bring your passport. It's gonna be great. What is your favorite show that you actually got to work on? Like a favorite production that you got to do?
Ooh. Okay. There is a show called No No Nanette. It is
Yes.
a 1920s flapper, chaotic little rom-com, basically. And I was the assistant costume designer on that show. It was the most chaotic time that I've ever had because the designer that I was working under has the mind of the most ADHD Energizer bunny you've ever met. Or at least I related to him very well because I also have an Energizer ADHD bunny in my head. But it was it was so much fun because like the actors and everyone just like had so much kind of like joy for the script because it was like it's so silly. Like who gets to say the phrase "you're greater than the cat's pajamas"?
Mm-hmm.
and
And
in earnest too.
yes, exactly. So that one was a lot of fun. And then I'll have to add a second one because
Please do.
I was the costume designer for an original play. It's called Happy Birthday Boris. And it was really interesting to work on that because I had the playwright who was one of my classmates. And so working to bring their vision to life, and it was an all student directed and designed production. So those two. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's super cool.
Do you realize what she just did?
No.
She accidentally created crossover with the other podcast that I host.
Oh.
I co-host a podcast about baseball.
Okay.
And there is a long
Where are we going with this?
there is a long-standing belief, whether or not it's true or not, that the owner of the Boston Red Sox, Harry Frazee, sold Babe Ruth to the New York Yankees in order to produce his next Broadway play or his next Broadway musical. And can you guess what that Broadway musical was?
No, no, no,
No, no, Nanette.
Oh my God! When theater and baseball collide.
Absolutely. It's not just damn Yankees. That's fantastic.
Big fucking nerd. The No Nanette were the rights to Pal Joey not available?
It's fun. That
no,
was
I'm
a
kidding.
fun
I just wanted a reason to
Yeah.
reference Pal Joey or
Yeah.
High Button Shoes.
High button shoes. Yeah.
But it's great. It's great. Musical theater is a uniquely American art form, and as much as I don't like musicals,
It's one of the only ones.
yeah, and as far as theater people go, I don't like musicals nearly as much as the other people do in theater. I will defend musical theater to its bitter end, no matter how much I do or do not like it. Shannon Elliot, this has been a goddamn delight. I'm gonna verify your phone number on the air right now. So I'm kidding.
We'll just dox you right here.
I'm not going to do that. But what I am going to do is ask you to tell everybody where they can find you on the internet.
Yeah, so it's pretty simple when it comes to social media. I'm author Shannon Elliot on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and those types of places. I do have a website, again, authorshannonelliot.com. And then all of my books you can find on Amazon and Kindle Unlimited. The audiobooks for Angels in the Dark and Devil in the Dark are available everywhere audiobooks are available. And my paperbacks you can get from your local indie bookstore just as you can get them from Amazon.
That's fantastic. Do you have anything for Shannon before we take off?
Congratulations again on Bound. It is very exciting.
Thank you.
I love every new release. It's like watching people have babies, but without all of the
Afterbirth.
No, it's just,
Yeah.
societal expectations to be a good mother or whatever. It's just exciting every time. I get so excited for people. Other than
Thank
that,
you.
no, I am going to get your phone number though, so expect me to dump some information on you.
Harass me anytime. I have a
Yay.
weird sleep schedule and I will probably respond.
Well, I have a toddler, so I go to bed early, but I will text you, I'm sure.
As soon as you finish listening to this episode, go buy Bound. Shannon Elliot, thank you so much for joining us on this month's Author Profile.
Thanks for having me, guys.